Everything in this great cosmic infinite universe is made of energy. And I'm not talking about energy in its scientific terms. I'm not talking about like sound and light. I'm talking about every single thing in this universe is made of energy. From the device that you're watching this video on, from the chair or couch that you're sitting on, even your genetic and biological makeup and your thoughts and your feelings are all made of energy. And energy it vibrates at frequency, and that energy can also never be created or destroyed. So it can be of low frequency and high frequency. And the best way to describe that is, for example, let's say like you're watching TV or you're listening to music, right? That sound alone is frequency, it's vibration. And notice how, like, obviously if you turn up the volume, the higher the frequency, and if you lower down the volume, the lower the frequency. But that energy, that frequency hasn't disappeared when you lower it down, when you put it on mute. It's just gone down to the point where you're not able to hear it anymore. And that's where hertz comes in. You know, that when we measure sound in like hertz. But it doesn't mean that energy is gone. It just means that we as humans can't hear it. Maybe that's probably why like dog whistles exist, because like dogs can hear, or animals can hear different sounds at different hertz. But to us it looks like the sound is gone, but it hasn't. It's just at a lower frequency. And that's the exact same thing with our thoughts and emotions, because the higher the frequency of anything affects the world around you, right? So the lower the frequency, the lower the environment, and the higher the frequency, the higher the environment. And that's the exact same thing with scientific terms. Like the higher the frequency of light, the brighter the light is, the brighter the environment, and the lower the light is, the lower the environment, right? And I never realized how much your emotions play a big part of it, because your emotions are of the same sort of thing, right? Your emotions are also vibrating at a frequency. And let's say if you're feeling like very depressed, or like you're operating from a place of fear or guilt or shame, that can actually negatively affect the world around you. And I never realized how important the law of frequency was until I actually started to reflect back on my life, because in 2022, that was literally the worst year of my life. Like I was so depressed, and that was actually the year that I graduated from uni. So I was so like desperate to find a job, and I wanted to better myself, but it wasn't working for me because I was still in that depressive state. Like I wasn't able to change the world within me, i.e. my mind, right? So I was still able to get jobs, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the jobs for me. Like, I don't want to name drop, but the one specific job that I got as soon as I graduated from uni was literally the worst job of my life. Like from the management down to the shift alone, like to the job, like the job role itself was so bad. And I never realized that it was down to like my own emotional state, because as I started to actually become consciously aware of the law of frequency and how my energy can affect the world around me, I actually started to change like my whole life around, like towards the end of 2022 and early 2023. That's when I started to actually get my dream job, or like the job that aligns perfectly with my degree. And I started to attract better friendships and better relationships, and that's because of how I was feeling, my energy and my vibe, right? And the thing is, my frequency was low, not because I was a bad person, but I was operating from fear and control. And those two things are low vibrational. There is an emotional vibrational chart somewhere that you can actually see where when you're feeling high vibrational, let's say you're feeling blissful and abundant and enlightened, you attract matter of the same energy. And I've mentioned this before, whatever you feel, you attract. So like that's why if you're operating from a place of fear or like negative, right, you transmit that into the electromagnetic field around you, and all you're doing is you're attracting matter of the same energy, because we are like magnets. We attract what we think and what we feel. We don't attract what we say. And that's why it's so important, like I've mentioned before, especially in my podcast, that saying things like affirmations are not enough to attract what you want, right? You need to become what you want. You need to live up as that person in order for you to live your dream life. So when I started like small, like when I started to meditate or to journal or started to have trust, which is again high vibrational, right? It's letting go, being able to be abundant, like placing yourself in that abundant mindset. That's when I started to see real change. And that's why, like, when we talk about like law of attraction, law of assumption, law of visualization, those things are very, very important. Like, I love talking about those laws of the universe, but they are secondary to the law of frequency. We must master the law of frequency before we master the law of attraction, because the law of attraction is like attracts like, right? So you need to become what you attract. But what's that down to? It's down to your frequency. If you are not vibrating from a place of success and abundance, you're not going to attract that frequency because you're not on the same frequency as it. Whereas if you change that world around you, then you're able to attract that, right? You're able to attract success. But if you're like depressed, for example, or let's say like you do want to attract success, and you genuinely do put yourself in that shoes of that successful person, but you only dedicate like 1 hour of your day to do that, but then the other 23 hours it's still you going back to your normal self, you're not going to be able to attract that because you're still lowering your frequency to your normal self, to your habitual self. Whereas when you start changing your environment around you, then you start changing the world around you, you start attracting better opportunities. So my energy started to change because I started to trust more. I started to open my heart to God and the universe. As soon as I had that internal shift, my external shift changed too. Like my 2022 self would not even believe what's happened for the past 3 years because I've been able to shift my frequency. And remember, like, frequency is never created or destroyed, like I've said. Like it only rises or it lowers down. It's never created or destroyed. So you have the power to either raise your frequency or lower your frequency. But like high frequency is not always about being happy all the time, because at the end of the day we are humans. We're not robots. We're bound to feel sad from time to time. Like something traumatic might happen to us and we're gonna feel sad, right? But it's also about being conscious of what you send out. So let's say like you've experienced something like very, very tragic, or let's say like you've experienced something that's deemed sad. Like let's say you've gone through heartbreak or you've gone through rejection, right? It's up to you to be consciously aware of what you're feeling. Like you can allow that heartbreak and that rejection to take over you, right? Like my 22-year-old self would have allowed the pain from heartbreak or rejection to take over my life, right? And it would probably make me depressed, and that means I wouldn't see the world for what it is around me. But now, if I were to get heartbroken again, or if I were to be rejected, I would allow myself to feel those emotions, but I wouldn't suppress it. I'd allow myself to feel and to heal and then let it go, and be conscious of the fact that I can actually change my emotions. I can change me from being upset and heartbroken to me being abundant and trusting God and understanding that every single thing that's deemed to be negative is guiding me to where I'm supposed to be. So you can still feel sad, but you can also vibrate high if your heart is open and you're trusting God and the universe. Why? Because you're operating from a place of abundance. And what is abundance? High frequency, right? And also it's so important to understand that your body literally follows through with how your mind operates. So your body is made up of millions of atoms, right? But your body is merely just a vessel of your soul. It's a vessel of you. That's why you don't say I'm hand, I'm eyes, I'm nose. You say my hand, my eyes, my nose, because everything is up here in your mind, not your brain, but your mind. Your mind operates the world around you, but your body is like a secondary source to that. And that's why, like, if you feel stressed, for example, you might have breakouts, or you might feel sick, or even like, if you were to think about a time that made you like angry, or think about like someone that broke your heart, you're going to start to feel sad. You might even cry. Or like, let's say like you've suddenly remembered an argument that you had with your friend or your partner. Your body's going to like remember that, and it's going to like follow through with that emotion. So like your heart might start beating. You're going to feel like hot-headed. It's because your body literally follows what your mind thinks. And again, that creates a frequency. It creates a low frequency if you're operating from that sense of emotion. And what happens is then your environment starts to change, and your environment then also follows through with it. And that's why, like, when we talk about law of attraction, law of visualization, law of assumption, which are one of my favorite things to talk about when we're talking about the laws of the universe, we often misunderstand it because we tend to forget that law of frequency is the primary law of the universe. If we do not master the law of frequency, we're not going to be able to master the law of attraction, or the law of assumption, or the law of abundance, and so on and so forth. Because all of these things, every single thing in this universe is energy and vibration. So if you want to, let's say, if you want to master the law of attraction and you want to attract success and love and money into your life, you need to understand how frequency works. Because if you are vibrating at such a low frequency, let's say like you're still in this depressed mode and you see no point of living, or like, I'm not even saying this in an insensitive way, but let's say like you're extremely sad and you're constantly negative, but also subconsciously, because everybody wants to build their dream life, right? Like everybody wants to have success, everybody wants to have luxurious things. It's not even just materialistic, but everybody wants to genuinely be happy subconsciously, right? It might not be the forefront of your mind if you are really sad, but everyone subconsciously wants to have a happy life. But if you want to have that happy life but you're still feeling negative, you won't be able to attract that, because you're not on that same frequency. You have to be on the right frequency in order to attract the life that you want. And that's what makes you magnetic. The higher your frequency, the more magnetic you are, because once you raise your vibrational frequency, your body follows through. Like everything is vibrating at such a high frequency, so you become so magnetic. Whereas if it's the other way around, if it's vice versa and you feel so low, you're nothing but matter, you'll just attract everything that's on the same frequency as it. And that's the exact same thing as like what's happened to me. Like I'm literally living proof of it. During that time of 2022, where I was feeling so depressed, but yet I still wanted certain things. Like I wanted a job, I wanted to have money, I wanted to be happy, I wanted to like have a relationship, but I was attracting the wrong things because I was in that low vibrational state. I wasn't operating from a place of abundance and high frequency. And it's funny because we were never taught this in school. We were taught with what to do with the world around us. Like we were taught with what to do with numbers, what to do with sentences, what to do with science experiments, and so on and so forth. But we weren't actually taught on how to use our minds. Basically, we weren't taught on how to actually change our environment. Like we can literally change our lives, like literally change our lives. And I'm not just talking about like small things, like, you know, change our like houses and like, you know, change like material things or shallow things. We're talking about we can literally change our lives around us. And that's what makes us so different to animals. It doesn't make us better than animals, but it makes us so different to animals because animals literally blend into their environment. If you play with like a dog or a cat, they're going to act on that stimulus in front of them, right? They're not going to think about what happened yesterday or last week, or they're not going to worry about their future. Why? Because they act purely on their senses and on their instincts. Whereas humans, we're able to actually change. We're actually able to think about our potential future whilst also focusing on the present. But in order for us to actually change our future whilst focusing on the present is to stay in that high vibrational frequency. So if we want to attract success right now in the present, we need to match that frequency of success. How does that successful person look like? How does that successful person talk and act, etc.? So everything, thoughts, emotions, feelings, everything vibrates at a frequency. So if you want to attract something, you need to tune into what you attract, right? You need to tune into that frequency. So if you're operating from fear or even doubt, even one small bit of doubt can jeopardize that goal or desire that you have, because doubt is also low vibrational. Once you start to change your vibration and once you start to increase your frequency, then that's when you start to see a better world around you, because the higher the frequency, the higher the environment. Just like the higher the frequency of sound, the louder the environment. The higher the frequency of light, the brighter the environment. And that's the exact same thing with your emotions. If you feel an emotion of high frequency, then you will attract an environment around you of high frequency. So how do we do that? The first thing that I've noticed is becoming self-aware. Once you become self-aware of how frequency works and how your body and your mind works, then that's when you are already in control. Another thing is that, and I know that not everyone actually agrees with doing this sort of exercise, but I absolutely love meditating, because when you meditate, you're actually able to connect with your highest center, right? Your highest center is the crown chakra, and that is the highest center of knowledge and enlightenment. And when you're in that environment, when you connect with your higher self, you connect with authenticity. Authenticity is high vibrational, right? And when you do that, you're actually your most powerful self, because you're out of your body, you're connected to your higher self, so you're able to essentially see everything. You're actually able to attract everything. And the more you meditate, the more your higher vibration has changed. And I've actually noticed that myself, like even with my body, like I've had like clearer skin. I haven't even been sick as often as well. Like there's literally numerous cases from like literally my favorite Joe Dispenza. He's even healed people from like really bad illnesses by doing meditation, because you really do heal yourself. You connect with your higher self, and you're actually able to heal yourself and the world around you. So meditating is actually one of my favorite things to actually raise your frequency and raise your vibration. But when we're talking like emotionally, if you really want to change your frequency, you've got to start living in gratitude. And I'm not just talking about being like, being thankful and saying thank you all the time, but when you're living in gratitude, gratitude comes hand in hand with abundance. Because when you are grateful for what you have and what you don't have yet, it takes you out of that sort of controlling environment. It takes you out of that place of fear and that place of desperation. What you're essentially doing is you're letting the universe or God know that you are capable of achieving what you want to achieve in life by being grateful for it. And that's why, like, when you want to manifest something, when you want to master the law of like visualization, law of assumption, and start assuming that you have all these things or you have all these successes, you have to also be grateful. Because what you're doing is you're showing God and the universe that you're open to more. Think about it. When someone says like thank you, when someone actually shows their gratitude, it makes them deserving of more. And that's the exact same thing. Like when you start to express gratitude in every single form, even in like when you're meditating or when you're journaling or whatever, you need to show gratitude, and you need to show that you are 100% certain that all of your desires will come true. Because abundance, again, is high frequency. So the law of frequency is not magic, it's literally science. So if you want to change your life, change the world around you, change your frequency, change the way you think, change the way you feel. If you are feeling like sad or like down due to like heartbreak or trauma, understand that you can become consciously aware of your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings, and you can change that. You can still become a happy person whilst also feeling these emotions, but you just can't let these emotions take over you, because once you become a slave to these emotions, your vibration decreases, and what happens is your environment then starts following through with that. Remember, whatever we feel or think, we send into the electromagnetic field around us, and then we start attracting matters of the same energy. So if you want to have a successful life, or you want to have a happy life, you've got to change your frequency. You've got to raise your frequency. Frequency is everywhere, and it never gets replaced or destroyed. The only way that you can change your life is changing your frequency.